Danielle is Executive Director of Anabaptist World. And I asked her a little bit to remind me, my memory gets foggy going all the way back to the Gospel Herald and the Mennonite. And for many years, I subscribed also to uh, the Mennonite World Review, weekly review. Thank you. There are copies back right by the door. Help yourself. I'm curious, how many people here subscribe? Okay, so you're in good company. Uh, Anybody here that doesn't subscribe? It looks like that's pretty much what it is. And so we're delighted to have you. Uh, Danny, she said I can call her, lives in Goshen. Her husband, Nata, and their sons, Francesco and Willow. Danny previously worked in marketing, communications, and development at Mennonite Mission Network. She's an alumna of both Heston College and Goshen College, served for a year with Mennonite Mission Network in Brazil. It's good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I knew you wouldn't disappoint. I knew there would be a lot of print subscribers here today. And as Dell said, there are copies. I brought some extra copies of our special January issue, if you'd like any extra of those. And also just a smattering of some of my favorite from over the years. So feel free to take those, anything over there. And if you're not a print subscriber, I have a little postcard flyer in the back that can help you get a discounted subscription if you'd like. No pressure, but we can handle that if you'd like. So as I said, I'm Danny Klotz, and I'm fortunate enough to be the executive director of Anabaptist World. I'm so happy Sierra's here. I began my role in 2020, and as I'm sure you all remember, that was kind of a chaotic time in our world. I was working at Mennonite Mission Network, and I had no plans to make my life any more exciting than it already was. We were a few months into the COVID-19 pandemic, but I did receive an email inviting me to consider applying to this role. And after some evaluation, I thought to myself, well, I'll be more disappointed if I don't try than if I try and it just doesn't work out. Going on 5 years later, it worked out so far. I still feel pretty new and very fortunate to be given this opportunity. So we mentioned some of our predecessor agencies. As we talk today, I'm going to try not to spill my drink. I have a bit of an overview I'd like to give and a reminder of the history of AW and our predecessors and our work. But I also would like to leave a significant amount of time for questions and conversation. I am full-time in my role as executive director, but also a full-time mom. And so it's kind of rare that I get to be in these sort of in-person events. It's wonderful. I'm just happy to be here. So I'm excited to hear from all of you. So 2020 happened. I moved into my role in July, and in September 1st was our hard launch date for Anabaptist World. Our predecessors at that time were Mennonite World Review. This is their iterations of their name. I heard Mennonite Weekly Review. That was also its name at one point. And the Mennonite still had content to create and issues to get out through those 2 months. So I was sort of in the background, making sure everything was ready to launch September 1st. And I had a lot of helpers as well. And we did it. It was a whirlwind. Whew, and many deep breaths along the way. It happened. And 5 years in, it's starting to feel like we're getting our legs underneath us, but there are a lot of times that it still feels like a whirlwind. I think every year since we launched, we've tried a new strategy here or there. And we are in an industry that's constantly changing, so there's always lots of things to learn. Now, well, maybe we'll go into the questions. I don't want to go over who. I'll just name our editor is Paul Schrag, and he was editor and executive director of Mennonite World Review previously. So some of these names will probably sound familiar. One of the distinctions between Anabaptist World and its predecessors, there's just a few I want to name, but the first one is that we are mandated to be a digital first publication. Now, that does not mean that our print content is less valuable than our digital content. Quite not. Our print subscribers, so thankful to many of you for being there, and our advertising for our print issues is a huge piece of our revenue generation. So if that went away tomorrow, we would be in a sticky situation. But what it does mean is that our digital content is just as valuable to us as our print content. And therefore, anytime we are looking to grow, or looking to try something new, our digital presence needs to be right at the top of how we do those things. It is true that as an industry, I hope I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, sorry, but as an industry, the trend for the past decades has been that every year, more and more content readers prefer to consume their content online. So we must always be trying to grow in that avenue. And while our print subscribers are still so very important and will continue to be important to us, in the future, as this trend continues, we will at some point have to figure out how to be so engaged and have the strong relationship with our digital content consumers that they will hopefully be able to help sustain our organization as well. I don't have all the answers on how to get there yet, but we're trying different things. We're learning and growing. Another piece to that is that our name is Anabaptist World. And by being online, all of our content that is in print is online, and there's more content online than there is in print. And for people on the other side of the world, whether it's, pick a continent anywhere, it might not be feasible for them to pay for a print subscription and all of the postage that is international postage and mailing. But they can find all of our content and benefit from our work just like anyone else can. And I think that allows us to live more fully into our name. It allows us to be just that much more inclusive. The other piece that is a distinctive for us, at least when we're comparing to the Mennonite, is that we are an independent organization. The Mennonite was the publisher, the publication of Mennonite Church USA. And when the merger happened, the organizers felt really strongly that Anabaptist World needed to be an independent non-for-profit. And that has gifts and it has challenges. Because we are committed to the legacy of the Mennonite Church USA still holds a special place in our attention, in our reporting, and the perspectives that we provide throughout our pages. It's also true that a significant majority of our print subscribers participate at Mennonite Church USA congregations. So there's that dynamic there. However, because we are independent, we are free to do our best, although limited, to cover as many perspectives and news from the great breadth of the Anabaptist expression and tradition. And this is not hard data. I did not take the time to sort of look back through the issues, but certainly you'll see a variety of this expressed in our features. I think our news and our columnists probably do the best job of showing different Anabaptist expressions and denominations. Excuse me. And I'm going to pause here. Since we have so many print subscribers, I wonder if anyone would be willing to share who their favorite columnist is. Have any brave souls? I should have prepared you all. And
John Ross.
John Ross, that's a good one. Uh-huh. Lucinda. Yes, that is a great example of the diversity that we can provide. Anyone else?
Sure.
Yes, Sarah.
Give the name again.
Sarah Kerberg was one. Anyone else? Sarah Augustine is one of my favorites. Yeah, I think all of our columnists bring something unique, of course, because we're all unique, but I think Sarah and a number of our columnists, she has a particularly prophetic voice, which, well, can lead into the challenges of having a diverse audience. I said before that the majority of a significant majority of our print subscribers are participants within an MCUSA congregation or faith community. We all know that we can participate in the same denomination, in the same church, and even the same Sunday school classroom and have pretty significant differences on how we understand and interpret scripture and how we understand that we should express our faith in the world. So our audience is no different than that. And this might be repetitive for some of you as readers, but I like to talk about what we print in a few different categories. The first is telescopes. And in this category, we get to cover and feature people, individuals, communities who are shining stars. They are doing important work, inspiring work, and we are able to zoom in on them and hopefully bring ideas, spark ideas and inspiration for others to try and learn and emulate if it fits for their context. It is a joy to write those stories and to publish those stories. The second category that I often think about, I like to think of as mirrors. And I'm sure this isn't true for any of you, but sometimes I look in the mirror and I don't love what I see all the time. And this is true for these kinds of content as well. They are hard stories. Sometimes they are news pieces about abuse, mistakes, misconduct within communities, institutions, individuals, leadership. And sometimes they are opinion pieces that come from our community and we say, oh, I don't agree with that. And I think a good example would be a piece that was published in our December issue, which came from two writers who shared about why they chose to vote for Donald Trump. And that is a mirror. And while many, if not all of my staff and I disagreed wholeheartedly with their perspective, we came to the conclusion that it was important that we publish it because it is reality. It is what other and some of our Anabaptist brothers and sisters are thinking. And if we don't see it, how can we respond? It's painful. And it can be painful to see those things. And in that way, a lot of the work that we do, especially in those instances, is prophetic work. And we are lovers of the word. So we know that the prophets of the Bible were strong truth tellers, important truth tellers, and guides to hope. And we also know that that is hard work and lonely work at times. It's often said that good journalism is speaking truth to power. And as I've been in my role, I've really tried to root us in Ephesians 4. And specifically Ephesians 4:15 through 16, which encourages us to speak truth in love. So I'm just going to read those verses here quickly. Instead, speaking truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him, who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. It is not always fun to do your work that is assigned to you. And I feel that when we are called to publish these really challenging stories. But our team at Anabaptist World feels passionately that we are called to do it. There is not another organization, especially within the Anabaptist movement, who is asking the same sorts of questions that we are and trying to, in those hard moments, step into it in the same way. If we're not paying attention, a lot of secular journalists won't. So it's our responsibility. And we are deeply committed to our faith and to our faith communities. We want to see the church thrive, which is why we do this, why we do our work. So I'm looking at my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything here. So we're going to continue to do that work in love as best we can, knowing that there will be pushback, but that's just kind of part of our work in the body of Christ. It goes along with it. That's what I have for us today. I really want to hear any questions or thoughts, ideas that you have. And as you think, two questions that I have for all of you to kind of marinate on. We talk about prophetic voices. I wonder who you hear today as a prophetic voice that you think Anabaptist World should be paying more attention to. That's my first question. And related to that, but maybe not, is what perspectives are missing from our pages. If you don't have an answer today, that's fine. I am happy to receive emails whenever. But I see a question.
Mark Rosenberry, husband of Janet.
In our household, we get Anabaptist World. We also get the Church of the Brethren Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people write in both.
Mm-hmm.
We've also heard that Wendy McFadden, who I believe is your peer
Correct.
at Messenger, won't retire because she's afraid the magazine will be shut down if she retires. Is it possible to have a merger between Anabaptist World and the Messenger?
That is news to me, as that Wendy feels that way. And so that is a new idea for me as far as a merger between Anabaptist World and the Messenger goes. The Messenger, as I understand it, like the Mennonite, is the publication and agency of, I'm sorry, the Church of the Brethren? That's okay. I sometimes get the Brethren Church and Church of Brethren. So nothing is impossible, I would say. But that's a new idea to consider. If Wendy came to me and wanted to talk about it, I'd certainly be open. Yeah.
Well, the decision you made to that little piece by those two men.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been in conversation
Mm-hmm.
with those people, and I think we see the results now
Mm-hmm.
in our nation.
Mm.
But what happened next was that wonderful article by Melissa
Flora Bixler. Mm-hmm.
Flora Bixler.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, what a wonderful, it was the most exciting thing I've seen for maybe ever in Anabaptist world.
Mm-hmm.
that we heard from the Miller was their names.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people here know them, but I don't. And then that response really by Melissa, and that's what we need. I hope that kind of thing continues. You know, a group I was thinking about is, so around here, Ivana, a lot of so many Mennonite churches left to join Ivana, and I think they call themselves Anabaptists. And the predecessor, the Mennonite, I guess, whenever they started, 10 years ago or longer than that, there would be little blips about them. And that's the last I know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last information I have. I don't need, I mean, I think they exist. I don't,
Yeah.
but I don't hear anything from them, but well,
right. Yeah, that's a good
who
note.
are they?
Right. They do still exist. They're working just as a yeah. Mm-hmm.
We know Levi and Dan Miller
Okay.
and are friends with Levi and Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really surprised at that article.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about asking them to do a follow-up now that we're into the Trump administration
That's a good idea.
and they experience all the disasters that are happening?
Yeah.
Relating particularly to immigration
Mm-hmm.
and USAID
Mm-hmm.
and its destruction of giving aid to the poor and the starving and medication for HIV/AIDS.
Mm-hmm. I am happy to bring that idea back to Paul. And we'll see. Yeah. See if I'm not sure about the timing, if they would want more time. But certainly that's a very good idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If Anabaptist World is an independent publication, you apparently have some kind of deal with the mission agency and MCC and agencies like that. Is that correct? I see their news releases or their article releases in Anabaptist World, and no other Mennonite denomination or agency from other Mennonite churches are published there. So, what kind of deal do you have with the institution of MCUSA?
Well, we don't have any formalized deal per se. We know that the majority of our print subscribers care deeply about MCUSA and their institutions. And so we do sort of pay attention, special attention, when those institutions have news. And partially also to honor the legacy of the Mennonite. That was part of our mandate, I will say, also to pay special attention. But I will say, send us all the news releases. We are always looking for more content. And if there are institutions and projects that are happening and feel as if they're not getting enough coverage, it might be just because we haven't seen it yet. So, yeah.
And what evidence do you have as to what kind of Anabaptists beside MCUSA are your subscribers and your faithful readers? From what other Mennonite denominations do you especially serve?
So we have a handful of people from all sorts of denominations. The evidence that we have, though, would simply be a survey that we did a few years ago, which named a number of different denominations and groups. But like I said, the vast majority is MCUSA. I would say, I'm trying to think, we certainly have a number of congregations that would identify as LMC now. That might be the second larger community. I'm sorry, Lancaster Conference, Mennonite Conference. They now just go by LMC rather than Lancaster Mennonite Conference. But that's probably the second largest. And then Mennonite Brethren would be next in there.
And following up with that, does LMC have its own publication?
It does not. Oh, well, it has a much smaller sort of newsletter.
How about Ivana?
I'm not aware of a print piece that they do. I know each would have sort of their own digital content, but it might.
Do you know whether or not LMC and Ivana people are going to non-Mennonite publications a lot and what they would be?
I don't know that per se. I could probably make some guesses, but I couldn't say with confidence, no.
I'm a former Church of the Brethren. And I know that the Church of the Brethren has split. So do you have both the Church of the Brethren, and I'm not sure what they're called now?
I mean, we would cover that as we can. Certainly, whatever news would come out of either of the groups, we would like to know and then evaluate what we can publish, what feels newsworthy and relevant. Yeah.
A
Hey.
few questions, but Canadian Mennonite magazine, are
Mhm.
you, what's like the relationship between AW and them?
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't, again, there isn't sort of a formalized work arrangement together, but anytime that there would be shared content or content that one publishes and the other is interested, we work really collegially together to reprint things. And there are some times where we have joint projects. I feel like last year we did a number of digital webinars together around Israel Palestine. So we look for ways to collaborate together, but we're two separate, totally independent organizations.
Another question, do you have Amish or other like conservative groups who contribute or you cover their news?
So we're trying. Um, some of you might be familiar. We have a digital editor. Her name is Eileen Kinch. She is based out in Pennsylvania. And Eileen has a talent to really cover more happenings and news within conservative communities. So I would say in the 2 years that she's been with us, we've been able to grow that content, but it is still minor compared to the other content.
Okay, then last question.
Yeah.
You were talking about like digital content. So
Mhm.
you have like articles on the website that are free to anyone, right?
Right. All the content is free.
Okay. And then you have webinars too? Like what else are you doing digitally, I guess?
So webinars might not be the right term. We do live streams.
Okay.
And often those live streams, they get pushed out on social media and live on our social media pages. And sometimes we're highlighting podcasts that we're collaborating with. Sometimes it's just different organizations that we think would be interesting to our audience. I think the last live stream highlighted one of the artists from the artist gathering that's happening here in Cincinnati, and a night arts weekend. So things like that. Yeah.
Are there any ways so far that you're able to like make money off of the digital? Oh, are there ways that right now that you're making money from digital content?
Yeah. So there's a number of different strategies at play there. The first would be digital advertising, which is going very well for us. Better than what was expected when we first launched Anabaptist World. And part of that was just that we didn't know what to expect, but that continues to grow. The other piece is our membership program, which is really targeted to our digital consumers. And that is, maybe there are members here today. Those members give monthly to Anabaptist World, receive a special newsletter, and a number of other special sort of things. So yeah.
I'm interested in the title Anabaptist World and appreciate your comments about we're all around. How many languages is it presented in?
So predominantly English, although we do have Spanish content. We have a handful of Spanish writers that, write different articles and columns and feature pieces monthly on our website. Unless you know Spanish. Right, it's not translated.
Yeah, my point is that those would not be available to me because I don't know Spanish in the same way that the rest of what I can read, people who knows where can't read.
Right. It's originally created in those different languages, although at times they are translated. I think there's been a number of instances where we've taken the Spanish article and translated it and used it for our English audience.
So I'd assume that to me, it seems like a lot of the times if I look up a website that's not in English, the Google like offers to translate it. So I would assume people could get it translated that way.
Right. There is those options on different web browsers.
With digital copy and with Google ability to check what people are doing, you have a wonderful opportunity of of getting a feel for what people are thinking. And does that affect how you present material and what you present?
We could probably be better at doing our Google keyword research to see more of those insights. I would say what we look at often are sort of what is most read, the pages that people most often go to on our website. And then we think about, okay, they're going to that page. What can we present to them on that page? A link possibly to a different article that is similar, that is related, so that they can gain more information and see the different things that we have. I would say that there is how do I say this? There's a number of things that we feel mandated to write, that we feel like is ours to write, and that is why people come to our website to see these unique perspectives from the Anabaptist movement and the news. And so trying to contextualize what might be sort of a hot topic is always going to be a challenge. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question very well, but.
You and I talked about it just briefly before, but for a layman like me, remind us of the difference between your role as executive director and an editor's role.
Sure. So another term for my counterpart, like Wendy at the Messenger, would be publisher. That's a term that previous executive directors would have held. I handle the fundraising, the marketing, advertising. I supervise all of our staff. I work with our board, and I get to dream up new things, new ways to work. So does that answer your question? And the editor, sorry, let me be clear. The editor, Paul Schrag is our editor, and also Tim Huber is our associate editor. They are doing the day-to-day work of trying to find the articles, editing them, putting them into the correct formatting, and all sorts of different things like that.
A good many years ago, I was hooked on two Catholic publications, America, which is published by the Jesuits, and Commonweal, which is independent Catholic weekly. I find them both very challenging, very interesting. Is there any consideration of bringing some of those Catholic perspectives to the attention of the Anabaptist readership?
I am always open to working with other publications, especially if they are speaking to and sharing and teaching about so many of the values that we hold dear. I think that as Anabaptists, as Mennonites, we kind of forget that peace and justice is not just our value, it's a Christian, those are Christian values. And other denominations are also hard at work at that. And so I would say when we become aware of those things, I always encourage our editors, because there is a slight differentiation between responsibilities there. But I encourage them to always try and include perspectives like that can challenge our audience as well. Sometimes in print, you'll see pieces that say wider world, and those are often pieces that are about different denominations, but are good for us to keep in mind or be aware of. That might fit that a little bit.
If I may comment, it seems to me that, well, one of the
We can't hear you.
One of the things that caught my attention with America was the similarities between the Jesuit intelligentsia's writing and the Anabaptist thinking. And It seems to me that more of that could be shared with our Anabaptist readership.
Very good.
Joanne Smith. I am in awe of what you have done with Anabaptist World and continue to do with it. I think it must be a really hard job, and I think you've just done a spectacular job. Back to Dan and Levi Miller.
Yes.
Well, I remember that 8 years ago they published another article in support of Donald Trump, and then they wrote another one and apologized. Does anybody else remember that? They apologized for their position. I thought, oh, good, they saw the light, but evidently the light went out. So
Back and forth there. That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. That would have been in the Mennonite, probably,
Yes.
unless it was a Mennonite World Review. But
Yes.
yeah,
yes,
I'll have to go back and find
I
that.
don't. My memory is not 100%, but that stuck with me because we know Dan very well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit, what kind of feedback did you? I know some of the letters immediately, I didn't find it, I can't remember that there were any supportive of him. Maybe there were, but sometimes I hear people say things, I mean, they read something they don't like and then they say, I'm going to cancel my subscription to this magazine. Is that the kind of thing that's happening?
I would say on a very minor scale. I maybe there were a handful of people who responded to us in that way. And who knows, I suppose, if other people did and didn't tell us. But overall, the majority of people that took the time to tell us what they were thinking in response simply appeared in our letters. And we received more letters of that same quality and caliber. I think it's very clear that the majority of our subscribers disagreed with their perspectives.
And we have 16 people online. If any of you are interested in asking a question, unmute yourself and ask. I'm John Hertzler. Do the Hutterites have any involvement with you?
Well, we would love to cover the Hutterites. I'm not aware if any of the communities are print subscribers necessarily. Over the years, we've tried to do different featured stories on different communities. The reality is that more plain dressing and conservative groups often don't see us as their publication. Even if we are vocal about wanting to know what they're doing and want to learn about them, there isn't always the reciprocal idea that we're together, understandably. So if anyone has any contacts with the Hutterites, please let me know.
I'm curious about like how all you gather stories. Like I assume you're kind of watching other news releases. But do you have people just like submitting ideas or articles? Like what are all the different ways that you get stories?
Yeah. So Tim and Paul and I, to an extent, are always we try to sign up for as many newsletters and news releases that are online so that they come directly to our email. I know specifically because our offices are in Newton, Kansas, that they get all sorts of mailings from all sorts of groups. And they're reviewing those, trying to see if there's any little bits or pieces that we can put together. Every once in a while, Tim just does a Google search to see if there's any like Mennonite thing happening in the wider news cycle. But we also get a lot of people writing with leads, ideas, and we always welcome people writing in and saying, "Hey, did you guys hear about this? Or I have this story idea. What do you think?" Yeah, kind of always on the look.
Okay, this is Barbara. I'm Barbara Smucker, and one of your columnists is a Lydia, isn't it Kretzinger or Kinzinger or something like that?
Lucinda? Lucinda, maybe?
Lucinda, yeah.
Mhm.
And she's from very conservative background, and that's something to look for. And following up on the other question that was over there, I like the idea that you put out the request for articles on this particular topic. And I was wondering too if you get quite a bit on that.
You know, it always depends on the topic. Sometimes we get a lot of responses, and sometimes it feels like we're shaking the trees, whacking them with sticks, but in a very nonviolent way. Just kidding. So it just varies greatly. I'm happy to say in this March issue that's going to print this next week, our topic is welcoming the stranger, and we had a lot of really great submissions for that. And yeah, I think it's indicative of the climate that we're in right now and how people are feeling very aware, yeah, of how the immigrant and the stranger might be being treated these days.
Danielle, this is John Letterock. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Hi, John.
Good to see you. I'm delighted with what I read in both the hard copy and online. I especially like Isaac from Chapel Hill.
Yes, Isaac's wonderful.
Usually a delightful voice for our church. And I like Conrad also. That's Church of the Brethren, I think. Conrad Carnegie.
I think he's LMC actually, but yes.
And he's suffering from Parkinson's, and he talks about that quite often. I hope that his health continues, that he can continue. I enjoy his column.
Thank you. Yes, we were really excited to be able to work with Conrad, and especially now. I think he's feeling that his capacity is limited and trying to do the most he can with the time he has. So we're blessed to be part of that.
It's of interest to me that you deal with subjects that are on the cutting edge of our thought as a denomination. And I commend you for that. Rather than just reflecting what we already believe, but you push us to the edge. And I think that's a very important function in this day and age.
Thank you. We're doing our best.
I think our time question here.
I'm Phil Bender. Could you talk about how you're doing financially? I know this is a tough time for publications, especially print publications. And second question, do you ever talk about maybe ultimately going to a only digital product?
So thank you. That's a great question. I would say financially, especially in the beginning, we just had no idea how this was going to go. And in those first few years, we were very pleasantly surprised that, especially with donations, that we were able to bring in more than we had been expecting. I would say since we've had some economic decline in the economy, it's been a bit leaner when it comes towards when it comes to donations, and that's just a reality that a lot of non-for-profits are feeling. And so financially, our goal is to break even, and we've been able to do that. If not, be in the black every year since we've launched, which is kind of amazing for a very new organization. I mean, I know we are standing on a long legacy, but in our newness, that feels pretty successful. I'll say I'm always welcome to other donations. It is a big help, and it is also a significant piece of what keeps our inkwells full, and even more so than what it was for our predecessors. Donations are a bigger part and will continue to be a bigger part of how we balance our books, of our financial success, especially with the trend of print subscriptions declining over time. At this point, being only a digital publication feels pretty far off into the future, for me at least. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. Our print subscription is still a huge, like the biggest part of our revenue generation. And so that's, little by little, it will decrease over time, but it's not going away in the very near future. So.
Annie, thank you so much
Yes,
for sharing
thank you.
with us, introducing us to some of the issues. Let's give her a thank you. And we do wish you the best in your continued work.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.